Hello, Culture Matters. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote that I picked just for this episode. You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. Friedrich Nietzsche. I have a new friend on the show today, Greg Rushin of Rushin Motivation. In his early 30s, he realized that work or hard work wasn't enough without personal development. And today, after creating much success, not only in the corporate world, but in the investment world, Greg is a life coach / personal development coach and accountability partner to many. And I follow Greg on Instagram and watch his videos. So I recommend following Greg. I guess we'll give that a shout out in a bit. But thanks for coming on, Greg. And I'm excited to, well, I guess I should probably say too, first time ever that I did push-ups before the episode with a guest. So like, that's cool in my view, because I was like, I got to keep this commitment. And as soon as I said, I'm going to be right back, let me do these push-ups, Greg was like, no, let's do them together. It's like, wow, you're just awesome, man. And shout out to Tony Capullo for introducing us. He's a family. He's like family here at the Culture Matters podcast. So thanks for coming on. And I look forward to this.
Jay, thank you. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you doing the push-ups. I hit the gym earlier today, and I kind of was thinking I needed a little bit more left in my day, and that was wonderful. So nice to have a partner to do them with and count them out. So I appreciate it.
I'm just glad I've been doing them for a few days that I was able to actually do them, because I just started this thing and it would have been tough and embarrassing probably some time ago. You also been snowboarding for years. Is that like, are you like a pro or something like that, or is that trying to, or almost?
I wish I could say I was a pro. I'm not a pro, but I'm going to be 40 here in a couple of weeks, and it's something that I'm proud to say that I've been doing ever since I was a kid. It's got me through a lot, and it's always been a rock. Sometimes when life doesn't go the way I want it to go, I can rely on that being the constant. So definitely fall back on it and use it to push me through many different aspects of business and personal as well.
What has snowboarding taught you philosophically that you may or may bring into your coaching?
Well, it's definitely taught me how to overcome adversity. It's taught me how to overcome pain. But more importantly, when I think about it, I think about all the vision that it takes in order to do it. There's so much vision, there's so much planning. And then there's the execution. Sometimes the execution doesn't go well. Sometimes it's flawless. When it doesn't go well, you can usually reflect back and see why it might not have gone well. And there's probably an error in judgment somewhere. But when it's flawless, then you look to duplicate it. Exactly what I've done in so many aspects of my life, both in person and in business. So it's taught me a lot of the foundational building blocks, and I rely on it every day that I can.
Were you snowboarding so you started in sales relatively young, right?
Right.
How old were you?
I was 20 when I started in sales.
And what kind of sales was it?
I was in the power sport business sales. So I was selling dirt bikes, ATVs, motorcycles. I was selling the fun toys.
How do you even get a job like that?
Well, it's, I was very interested in that segment. And when I was growing up, I was big into racing motocross and riding dirt bikes and just playing in the woods with that stuff my entire childhood. And then, snowboarding too, the same thing. I just grew up doing it. I was a snowboard instructor in my mid to late teens. Got a chance to meet a lot of really cool people. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. I met so many people, from doctors to gemologists, which I didn't even know what it was, but those guys that fly around the world looking for diamonds and cool stones. It was just a really good eye-opening experience to realize that there's so much in the world. It put me in a good position. And then when I was getting toward the end of my snowboard instructing career, I kind of had a pitfall in life, and it propelled me into the power sport sales. But it was kind of a tragic time in my life. And I was 17 years old. I was in the high school lunchroom, and I got pulled out by a teacher and taken to the principal's office. And I was a good kid. I had no reason to be in the principal's office. The chief of police and two other police officers that were there. And they told me that they found my father's body on the floor of his office. He had committed suicide. I grew up in a small town, really good family, no issues. And that, it was a crossroads in life. What do I do at 17 years old? It's a tough time of anybody's life, whether there's a tragedy or not, just being 17. Do I go to college? Do I not? All those decisions on the table. Well, once I heard that news, one thing I wasn't doing was going to college. It just wasn't in the cards. I had a younger sister, an older sister, and a mother. And college wasn't the thing. So I was into snowboarding. I was into power sports. Didn't really know what to do. So I got a job in the power sport field. I felt like I could probably go in there and make some sales and make it happen. So that's what I did. And that's how I got the job.
What was his career?
He was a financial planner.
Was it the dot-com bubble?
It was 2002. So no, there was no issues. It was just crazy.
Sorry.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Have you found that now you've gone, you're sharing your life? Have people contacted you and shared similar? Yeah,
some have, for sure. And I like to be that sounding board because we've all been through tragedy. It's tough. And you can choose to get through it or try to get through it, put the right steps in motion to work your way through it, or you can dwell on it. And I'd rather be the one that says, no, I'm going to do this for him rather than dwell on something and not do.
You don't know this, but I never met my father, and had I likely wouldn't be doing this.
Is that right?
Doing what I do.
Sure. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I was adopted.
Okay.
And I always knew, and no complaints.
Right. Yeah. Good for you.
That it's just interesting. So yeah, like what goes through an 18, 19-year-old guy's mind? I guess it's sales.
Right. I was told by the owner of the company at the time, if you come here to work, you're going to make 50 grand a year. I thought, well, that's not the issue. If I'm going to come here, I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to work. And that I did. And I surpassed that easily the first year. And that's when I realized I was still in that undecided phase. What do I do? And at that time, I was thinking of all the student debt my friends were racking up and knowing that they're probably going to get out of college in the career path that they're going and take a job that pays less than what I'm making. So I just kept at it. It's about all I knew what to do. And I was happy and it was fun. And I got to enjoy one of my passions and sell it. So that was when my working career kicked off.
So you did well at this. Why? What was it about how you were approaching people and transactions that created, I guess, upward trajectory for you to become a leader?
I think a lot of it had to do with, it was in my heart. It was a passion of mine. It was a passion that my dad and I shared. We were into snowmobiling and dirt biking. And, we were at the track every week together. And it was an easy product for me to wrap my head around. But more importantly, it was just from the heart. Everything I did was from the heart. And I think that conveyed to the customer base. I was there for the right reasons and not just the paycheck.
What was the culture like?
The culture was great. It was, a lot of work. It was stressful. It was a growing business with very few employees at the time, which worked out good for me. It was commission only sales, right? So when you're in a short staff situation, you can really thrive. But the culture was good. It was fun. It was energetic. It was exactly what I needed at that point in my life. And ultimately I could get my feet kind of solidified in a good position with a good company.
What does life coach mean to you? Because there's a million perceptions of that. And even in myself, I've struggled with like the thought, like people call me various things, and I'm not sure how I accept the titles. So how do you view a life coach? How do you define that, and what has made you accept that role in the world at this point?
You know, thinking back on, well, you had mentioned in the introduction that in my early 30s, I kind of began my personal development journey, and that's exactly when it really happened. So coming from the adversity of my father passing when I was in my late teens, through being in sales and then on to being a general manager of a large power sport dealership, and then on to corporate management with a major manufacturer, I then set my focus on personal development. And that's when my life really started to escalate. Things started to really happen for me, both at work and outside of work. And I thought, I've always wanted to help people get through situations like I got through, because there's two ways to go about it. One way is dark and it never leads to anywhere good, but a lot of people fall into that. And the other way is coming out the other side, which is what I feel I did. But there were so many steps in that, so much of that process I feel could be accelerated for someone. And I feel like since I've been through it, I can help somebody take years off of that process. And when I began my personal development journey, of course, I studied personal development. I read books and studied different authors. And I thought, I really don't think that any of this content is supported by something as tragic as I went through. Some of it is, for sure, but the majority of it isn't. And I thought, I think I've had enough life in my life, enough experiences, business and personal, and coming through a tragic situation like that. I feel like it's time for me to share. I feel like it's time for me to help as many people as I can become stronger individuals, more powerful individuals, and believe in themselves to a completely higher level. So,
no, go ahead, sir.
That to me is what a life coach, I feel, should be wrapped around.
Adversity turned into a fuse for other people?
Yeah, for sure. And prosperity. I think anybody can prosper after something like that. And many don't feel they can.
Why do you think that is?
I think they just get stuck, I think they need some help getting pulled through that. It's like I said, there's two ways you can go. And that door to the dark side was certainly open for me. You got to remember, I grew up as a snowboarder and a skateboarder in my late teens when that happened. I mean, I felt like I had an excuse too. I could easily do that, and I have an excuse. I could run away from home. I could couch surf for a while. I could do all those things. And part of me thought that felt good. That felt fun. And I thought, no, I just can't do it. I got to do it for my dad. I got to do it. I got to do the better. And so I just went to work, and I worked as hard as I could.
So what's hard work look like, and what type of fruit you were able to create a life for yourself? But is that 7 days a week all in, and it's like it became an obsession?
Well, for sure. In sales and early on in my early 20s, probably. Yeah, it was definitely an obsession. It's all I did. I worked and worked. And then when I became the general manager of a dealership, I worked, and I wanted to establish that work ethic among my people. So I worked as hard as I could. And then when my career switched to corporate, I thought, this really isn't adding up. Everything that I'm doing isn't really quite adding up to the life that I want it to add up to. So that's when I really started studying personal development. I quickly found that I was living kind of in a big misconception between hard work and personal development. And when I put those steps in, as far as personal development goes, even little things like learning how to accurately set goals and structure the goals, once I put those things in place, and once I started working a lot harder on myself as a person and not necessarily focusing on my job took a huge leap. I started hitting commissions that I never thought were for me. I started winning trips that I didn't think were reserved for me. It was all just kind of limiting beliefs, but I was conditioned to believe that based on the geographic area I lived in versus some of the other markets in the United States. And that's when it clicked for me. I thought, I need to do more of this personal work and less work in my job. And my job will follow the personal growth. My job growth will. And not only did it, but I created so much more time in my life to start other things like my real estate business and then eventually my coaching business. So, and now I want to share it with as many people as I can, help them pull themselves through and see a higher person within themselves.
Have you found similarities in people that you've engaged with, that they're missing that personal development piece? And
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when I do get the opportunity to work with someone, I love sharing it and I love them seeing the light bulb. It's the same light bulb I saw. Like, oh my gosh, I've been going about it wrong. That makes perfect sense.
where would one start with setting a goal in your view?
In setting a goal, first of all, I think that a goal needs to be something that's a little bit outside the realm. And I say that lightly because there's so many things within a goal that need to be checked. But if you set a goal outside the realm a little bit, any motion toward that goal is going to be growth. And then there's many goals within that you can check the boxes. If I want to shoot for way out in left field, there's going to be so many steps involved to even get there. And if I don't get there, and if it's a complete miss on the goal, all those steps that you took, they're growth. It's not wasted time. It's not wasted energy. It's just growth. So I like setting lofty goals. I like putting things out there. If you do hit it, it feels tremendous. And then you're hungry for more. What's next? But if you don't hit it, you certainly feel like a better person for putting yourself in that direction. And without that goal, you wouldn't have gone that direction.
Have you found that people just don't have them?
Oh yeah, almost everybody I talk to, they don't have goals.
Why?
And some say I do. Okay, what are they? Show them to me. They don't have them written down. I don't write them down. Oh, they need to be. I think a visual is super important. That kind of goes back to my snowboarding. You have to visualize it. And visualizing it is way more than just seeing something in your head. It's putting it down on paper. What does it look like? And what angle am I seeing it from?
Can you tell my fiance that? Because when she goes to my office, she wants me to clean up all the papers off the ceiling and the floor and the walls.
Everywhere you look, you're reminded about something that's important to you, aren't you?
It's there. I wish I was home so I could show you the house. Yeah. This damn Airbnb. That's too funny. I love it. So if let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, I never thought of that. I haven't written anything down. Reverse engineer, like, at some level, where would one write something down right now, or like go through that process how to start thinking about what matters to them and why it should kind of.
Right. So I think, first of all, everybody has some things that matter to them. They have some place they want to be, some car they want to get, some house they want to eventually be able to afford, whatever it is. I think that you just need to start writing. And I'm a huge fan of writing down ideas. Everywhere I go, I have a bunch of these little pads and I just write ideas down. Those ideas might turn into goals, but just writing something down is always step number one. And then once you write some things down, then your goals start developing. Okay, yeah, I do want a new house. I need more bedrooms. That's a great example of somebody that needs to achieve a goal. Maybe their wife is pregnant and they live in a single bedroom. Just write it down. And then what does it look like in order to get there? What do you need to do? And then, like you said, reverse engineer it. Try and work as many steps backwards as you can. Try and get that blueprint built. Just like a contractor looking at a finished product of a home. He doesn't just see a picture of a home and then start digging in the ground. There's blueprints. He knows exactly how many blocks, exactly how much plywood, how many 2x4s. He knows everything before he starts. And that's because that is reverse engineered. The picture of the home turned into blueprints, turned into material list, then hit the ground.
You think part of the value of having someone like yourself looking outside in is that a person observing outside in can see what the person in just can't see? they're like, I'm not a house, I'm a person.
Right.
So is that part of the value of just having that person see you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just having somebody to talk through it with and say, hey, this is where I want to go, but I have no idea how to get there. And then we look at their current situation, their current life, their current work environment, and we just pick it apart. What can we do better here to get to where you need to be?
You think people procrastinate because they don't know where to start and then they just never get anything written down?
Yeah, absolutely. Procrastination is something I think we all do. And when you can find that motivation to get through that, and a lot of times it is that goal to pull you through it and start the disciplines. Everything about achieving something starts with disciplines.
I saw that you have videos on Instagram of you articulating different thoughts and ideas. Well, is that something? Where did that inspiration come from, and what's that journey been like?
You know, a lot of that journey is, again, the reverse engineer process. When I started studying personal development, I realized, wait a minute, I've done that before. I know I have. And then I rewind my life and think, okay, this is where I did it. And this is how I did it. And that's really interesting because I could probably do that same process, those same steps on this obstacle that's right in front of me. And that's what I do too, is I find something that somebody's good at. And it might not even be remotely close to what their goal is, but something that they're good at. And I ask, why are you good at that? Why are you better than your peers? Why are you better than anybody else around you at that one specific thing? And then we pick that apart. Chances are they're better at it because they research it. They read a lot about it. They are passionate about it. There's a system in place that they're completely unaware of that makes them better at that one particular item, task, or whatever it is. So then when we can dissect that process and put it right over top of the situation that's in front of them now, it's like, are you reading more than your peers about this that you want to become better at? No? Okay, maybe that's step number one. You're not passionate about it because you don't spend any time doing it. Maybe that's step number two. Set aside some time every day to read about it, research it, and practice it. And then they realize that, yeah, so the same way I got over that hurdle years and years and years ago that made me better at something is the same thing I need to do now.
Reading. Are you an audio guy, a physical, both? How have you gone about that?
You know, audio mainly up until probably 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And the reason being, I was just on the road a lot and I wanted to fill that windshield time with something valuable. So audio was definitely my go-to, but I always wanted to be a better reader. And I never was a reader in school. I hated reading. I hated it with a passion. I failed alphabetical order in second grade. My mom still reminds me about that. She was an English teacher. So I just absolutely hated it. And I always wanted to be a better reader because I knew it could unlock a lot of tools that I would find valuable in life. So I did exactly what I preach. I looked in my past and I thought, why am I a better snowboarder than most of the people around me, especially my age? I should add that because there's a lot of good snowboarders. And why do I have more interest in that? And why do I excel? Well, one, I spend time doing it. Two, I research the heck out of it, all the different types of snowboards and equipment and apparel. And, I don't do any of that with reading. So I'm going to try and set aside some time every day to read. And because I did that, I developed the passion for it. I started rifling through books. And yeah, it's definitely a tool of mine and highly recommended tool. If I could pass that recommendation on to anybody, it can really unlock a lot of secrets.
What about audio? Like some people say, oh, it's not for me. I'm not going to listen when I'm driving. So what was your experience? What was the fruit of listening to audio books? You said you turned your car into, or your drives into.
Yeah, I kind of turned it into a mobile classroom.
Yeah. So what was the fruit? What you gained from that? Firstly, right? Why should the audience be open to audio?
Well, I'm not a music buff. I like music. I like listening to it. If there's a song on the radio that I like right now, I guarantee you I couldn't tell you who sang it what the lyrics are or anything. And I've always been like that. So driving down the road, listening to music, I just got the sense like this is absolutely a waste of my time. I really don't enjoy it. I don't know what they're saying. I might like a beat, but if I don't like a beat, I tune it out. So rather than that wasteless energy, I thought I'm going to start listening to audiobooks and different podcasts. And it completely changed my way of thinking about audio books and podcasts. First of all, I didn't think that I could really tune into it. I'm more of a visual guy. I've always been the picture in the magazine type of person. And so I thought if I'm not looking at something, I'm not going to comprehend it. But that was false. For me, that was completely false. And I did comprehend it. And I really enjoyed my drives, and it took so much time off my drives that I would just dwell like, oh my gosh, this is a 4-hour hike, not looking forward to it at all. That turned into I'm getting behind the wheel of my truck and I have a 4-hour drive and I can't wait.
How long did you do that? Meaning, like, how many years have you been listening to audiobooks?
Probably 8 years.
That's amazing. We have a huge, I mean, our listeners are into the audio.
Yeah.
Because we are here at Culture Matter. Like, what type of before and after would you say of who you are as a person from 8 years of like turning your car into a library?
Well, I went from working at a dealership, working 70, 80 hours a week, to owning 3 companies and walking away from a beautiful corporate cushy job with great benefits. So I think that's pretty much the definition of how I changed.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I meet people all the time that don't do audio, and they have a lot of reasons why it's not for them. And have you found that those that you've worked with, sir, that are entrepreneurial, they feel the same way you did at one time, where they didn't think they'd get value out of it, and then they ended up enjoying it?
I think so. Pretty much everybody that I talk to that has an entrepreneurial spirit indulges in audiobooks, podcasts, and reading. And I also think that there was a period in time in their life for most of them that they didn't. And I think it's a key to unlock many opportunities in life.
Yeah, I think I'd be a nobody, know nothing without audiobooks. I just want to add that in there.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about this.
I want to add something to that too, that really, it made me realize something. So I've been on this personal development journey for, I don't know, not 8.5, 9 years, something like that, somewhere around there. And I started studying personal development and reading personal development and implementing personal development practices, trying them, seeing if they work, seeing if they don't work. Some did work, some didn't work. There's many mistakes, many errors, business and personal. And it wasn't until like 1.5 years ago, like I said, I started actually picking up books and reading it. I was so extremely disappointed because I picked up a couple personal development books. I was so upset to realize that what I self-taught myself over 8.5 years was simply in a book on my shelf since I was 18 years old. I remember getting the book. So really? If I can pass that message to anybody, it was crazy. I'm like, man, I spent years learning that, and it was seriously in one chapter of this book.
In the sense, learning it the hard way,
right?
And you're not getting the time back.
Never.
Is time important to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly what I want to do with coaching. I want to take that 8.5, 9-year journey that I went on, and I want to consolidate it for people. I want to shorten that to a 2-year journey, a 3-year journey.
What do you think some of the fears are when people seeking counsel?
I think a lot of it has to do with what their peers might think, what their friends might say. I was in that boat. All I needed was work. I knew how to do it. I'll go to work. I don't need anybody. But it can accelerate and change lives quickly.
Was it a mastermind or some kind of group gathering you did all those years ago, or was it more of training internally in the organization, or was it direct mentor, role model? Like how'd that light flicker in you said your early 30s?
Yeah, I was traveling down the road listening to a podcast, and one of my favorite thinkers of all time, Jim Rohn, was
Yeah.
I stumbled on a YouTube video of Jim Rohn, and it wasn't a video of him up on stage or anything, it was just audio. And he said, success, and I'm going to paraphrase this, I'm probably going to get a couple words wrong, but he said, success is not something you achieve. Success is looking for a nice place to stay. I remember hitting pause and thinking about that. And that's really where my journey got kicked off. And I thought, maybe I'm not working on that nice place for it to find me. I'm working my butt off trying to achieve it, but I still feel like I'm not. And that's when it changed for me. So it wasn't a mastermind that I went to. It wasn't some crazy group seminar or motivational whatever. It was just me going down the road, and I stumbled across that, and I thought, wow, I need to shift where my mindset and where my mind share goes. It needs to go more toward me rather than toward my work and how much hours and effort I put in. And if it goes like Jim says, that will find me. And it certainly did.
What about, those, are there people that you'd say their message you resonate with today, because Jim's no longer with us. So there's certain figures that you'd say, they've got a strong message that you align with?
Yeah, Eddie Pinheiro, I think, is one of them of this day that really articulates stories well.
Pinheiro.
Yeah, and I love how his storytelling hits home to so many people. It's such a down-to-earth relationship that, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what you're talking about. And Jim Rohn was the same way.
Does Eddie have any books?
I don't know if Eddie has any books.
Is it a podcast?
Yeah.
What's that? What's it?
It is oh, you got me off guard. I'm gonna have to look it up. Something World Within.
Yeah, it'd be good to share it, I think, with the audience if it's that impactful to you. And let me see.
Your World Within. I knew it was World Within. Your World Within.
So people can follow that. I selfishly want to know, are you working on a book or do you have one?
I'm working on several things that I'd like to think would turn into a book at some point. So I have a bunch of material written down, different chapters, different segments of my life, but it's not compiled in a book. And I'm kind of anxious to see where that goes. I always said I'm going to write one.
Well, what would it be called if you did?
I haven't even thought of it.
Earlier in the conversation, well, I'm excited to bring you back when you have it. How about that?
Yeah. I kind of have an idea of what the cover is going to look like, though. And I've always been a goofball. My buddies and I joke. We're sitting at the bottom of the snowboard park, drinking a beer, and we just laugh because it's like, all right, we have a very successful mortgage broker, an extremely successful real estate agent, myself, commercial airline pilot. We're all sitting down on the fence just thinking, like, we've chased this our entire life, this snowboarding thing, but we've all become very successful in life. And so I think the vision I have for the picture of my book is the top part of me being in a suit and tie, probably carrying a briefcase, the business side of me, and a pair of boxer shorts strapped into my snowboard, because that's just the goofball that I am.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, I was thinking like the bottom of the mountain. I don't know, just like, because when you're looking at the top of the mountain, I mean, isn't there fears and apprehensions, or maybe it'll be easy, or it can do that, and then like from the bottom, it's always easy to look at the top. I don't know. I like your idea.
Yeah, I think it depends on, you can look at it. Depends
There's
on
so much value in a mountain, in a mountain.
For sure.
Like, because well, I'm thinking the snowboarding stuff. There's so
Yeah.
much value in conquering a mountain. Like, what's it like to go down a Black Diamond?
You know, it's phenomenal. It's exhilarating. It's absolutely wonderful. But I'll tell you, I tapped into another style of snowboarding in the last few years, and it's split boarding. And it's, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's basically where your snowboard splits in half, your bindings remount in a forward direction from the toes point toward the nose of the board and your heels point toward the tail. So you're basically on a set of cross-country skis, and then you put climbing skins on the bottom of them, and you traverse and hike up the mountain. So no chairlift. This is all backcountry avalanche terrain. And my buddy's big into it in Alaska. So I've been going up there and doing that with him. So when you said bottom of the mountain and you said it's easier to be at the bottom, I wanted to say, well, it depends. Did you just get down or do you just have to go up? Because there's two ways to look at that.
That's interesting. Well, that's even, there's so much there.
Yeah.
It'd be a great book.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
read it. I guess what would you like the audience to take away from this conversation as far as, the idea of having an accountability, more than accountability, I guess, a conscience separate from oneself, right? To ask those tough questions, to be there in support. Like what does the audience need to be thinking about as it relates to this conversation?
Well, I think foremost, everybody should be focused on how to become a better person within themselves. And you mentioned accountability. And I think having an accountability partner is key to so much of that, because the promises and the plans that we make to ourselves are so easy to break. Who's going to hold you accountable? If I don't get up in the morning like I say I was going to, if I don't go to the gym like I said I was going to, who knows about it? Nobody does. Who's gonna yell at me for it? Who's gonna hold me accountable? Nobody. So I'm a huge fan of stepping outside the box and making those promises to somebody else. Because if you make a promise to somebody or tell somebody you're going to do something, chances are you're going to do it. And if not, there's a repercussion there. They're going to come back at you and say, hey, did you do that today? So I think accountability partners are huge. And in fact, at the very beginning of this podcast, we dropped down and did 20 push-ups because you're holding yourself accountable for that. Maybe you're working with an accountability partner, but the person I was just talking to you about in Alaska, he was an accountability partner of mine for 100 push-ups a day for 100 days. And it was great. It was life-changing for us, just as friends. It forced us to stay in touch. He's thousands of miles away in Alaska. I'm in Western New York. So it forced us to stay in touch with each other. We talked every day. And that talk might have been a simple text that says 100. And then he knows that I completed it and vice versa. But, we stayed in touch, and that 100 push-ups turned into so much more. All right, what do we do in the next 100 days? Well, let's do 50 push-ups, 50 squats, and 50 lunges and 50 ab exercises. Something like that. And we've always just kind of had that morphing challenge with each other.
Is part of your point overall is that type of work ends up leading to more business.
Absolutely. And Jay, I find that physical boxes to check, like 100 push-ups a day, I find that that's easier to check than some of the mental boxes in life. And if you can structure a day around a few check boxes of something physical, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, whatever it might be, a walk around the block at night, whatever, if you can check those boxes, it creates discipline in your life. Do that for a week. That week's going to turn into a month. That walk around the block is going to turn into a mile. That mile walk is going to turn into a half-mile run and a half-mile walk. Those boxes to check each week, each day, are so easy, and not a lot of people are doing them. But when you can get some traction in checking those boxes, the mental obstacles, or per se the big business obstacles, they become so much more easy because it's like, I can break this down. I can do it. I can check a few boxes. I know I can get over these hurdles. I can do it. So physical for me has been a huge, huge building block for everything else, mental and business.
What are you excited most about for 2024?
I'm excited to get Rushin Motivation completely off the ground, and I want to go full speed ahead with it, help as many people as I can, and be in the best shape of my life at 40 years old, and climb mountains and travel and have as much fun as possible and help as many people along the way as I can.
Let's say someone's listening to this, they want to interview to be qualified to be a part of your teachings. How would they go about doing it?
Simple. They can go to RushinMotivation.com, read all about me, check me out on Facebook and Instagram. There's links right there. And there's an apply form within Rushin Motivation where they can fill out a form. I get the contact information. I'll be in touch.
Oh, last question in closing. What type of person are you not looking for? So they know not even to bother.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm going to kind of reverse it on you because I get asked this question a lot. What is your ideal client? And my ideal client is somebody that is really looking to better themselves. I have to see that spark. I've interviewed so many people that I can tell they want to better themselves, but they're not going to put themselves through the motions to do so. So I got to see that spark. I got to see that invigorating drive and desire to do better for themselves. If that's there, let's go.